Well, we are getting to that season. The college football season officially wrapped up last night. Means we can definitely look ahead to the draft now. As we got our guy Dane Brugler in from the Athletic. Dane, always great to chat. And man, it's all done for you now here, save for the prepping for the draft. Right, all the games are in the rear view here, huh?
That's it. All the tape is done. I was watching the Ohio State Notre Dame tape this morning, kind of putting that to bed. So yeah, all the evidence is on the film, and we have all of the film, and that's where the bulk, 80% of the grades, that's where it comes from. And then, now we have the All-Star games and the combine and the workouts, and those things matter. But for the most part, the grades are done, the hay's in the barn, and now it's about just kind of figuring out, getting guys in the right areas and then separating them in terms of the draft ranking. So it'll be interesting next few months.
All right, let's start with our guy Kyle McCord. We talked in, I think it was September, Dane, after he had, all right, this guy's got a little something that maybe looks a little different. Then it legit played out that way basically every game but one the rest of the way. How do you look at him compared to where you looked at him maybe a year ago?
You want to see growth, you want to see improvements, and I think it's fair to say that's what Kyle McCord put on tape. I think the main reason Ohio State wanted to try and upgrade was just the ability to move and just that mobility, that had that in the mind of defenses. And we saw that play out with what Will Howard gave that Ohio State offense. And we saw it, on the Syracuse tape. That's not really Kyle McCord's game. He can move a little bit, but for the most part, he's not going to scare defenses. But in terms of him as a pocket passer, when you don't have that extra mobility, you better be good from the pocket. And I think Kyle McCord made some big improvements with his anticipation, with his ability to put the ball where it needs to be. Ball placement is at a premium, and he takes that's very important to him. You can tell. Now, at times he will get a little bit overzealous with some of his decisions. We saw that with some of the turnovers, and Syracuse put the ball up a lot this year, so he had a lot of opportunities, and for the most part, he took care of them. But he trusts his receivers implicitly, and obviously we knew at Ohio State that's one thing when you were throwing to Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka and these guys. But would he show that same trust in his receivers at Syracuse? And there's no doubt he has. And obviously Syracuse has a pretty good group of pass catchers that he was throwing to. So I'll be going down to Dallas, Frisco here this week for the Shrine game practices, and I'm eager to see Kyle down there, so let him rip it.
Yeah. Where do you have him right now? Because it feels like, the top two guys, barring something strange, right, are Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders. After that, it gets a little more muddled. How high do you think, McCord could go? And how much of that specifically with quarterbacks is just an eye of the beholder type thing?
Yeah, no doubt. And a big part of it will be because when you draft quarterbacks, when NFL teams draft quarterbacks, head coaches and offensive coordinators have a huge say. The scouts have already turned in their grades on these guys, and right now they're kind of cross-checking different area scouts. But when the offensive coordinators, the play callers, the head coach, when they get involved in the process, which is happening right now, especially at these All-Star games, that's when things could change a little bit because if an offensive coordinator really, during these interviews, really connects with a guy, that's going to matter. And so for Kyle, when he goes into these interviews, it's going to be important to break up some of when you look at the rounds 3 through 5. Guys like Tyler Shucks from Louisville's in there, Jackson Dart, Ole Miss, Quinn Ewers, Texas, Riley Leonard, Notre Dame, Will Howard, Ohio State. There's a lot of guys kind of in that 3rd to 5th round mix, and these interviews could go a long way to kind of separating how teams stack guys on the board, just understanding, where these guys are in their process of breaking down defenses and just the mental part of the game. So these next few months will be imperative for Kyle just to show that, hey, mentally I am ready for the NFL. And yeah, this is what my tape says. But, when we talk ball, X's and O's, that's really going to separate myself.
Yeah, my sense is he's going to just crush it when it comes to that based on dealing with him all year long. He knows that stuff in and out. And then, this year, you look at a lot of these guys, he was playing in essentially an NFL offense this year, right, with what Jeff Nixon was dialing up. How much does that help? I mean, we see so much issues, right, recently with transition of spread offenses, bubble screens, read options and stuff where, Kyle was working from the pocket. He was throwing those slants. He was throwing those back shoulders. It was more of an NFL-style situation that he dealt with this year.
They were really diverse. I mean, one snap, it's heavy personnel. The next, they're spreading out. They did a little bit of everything. And so if you're an NFL team, you'd love to see that. You want guys that, sure, some of these quarterbacks, they've got a master's in a certain scheme, and that's great. But to show that you have experience doing everything and, you understand the verbiage, you understand, okay, based on my pre-snap look, this is what I need to be going through in my progressions. And part of playing quarterback and going through progressions is just eliminating things quickly. And I think that's where Kyle really separates himself, pre-snap and post-snap. Pre-snap, based on his looks, he knows, okay, this is where the vulnerable spot in the defense is going to be. And that allows post-snap, he can be just a lot more efficient. And so, he's not perfect in that area, obviously. Some of these, those turnovers showed that. But I think he's further along than a lot of these other college quarterbacks, and that's something that'll really show during the interview process. And just watching him on the field, very poised, just the way he plays, and I have no doubt that'll carry over to these interviews.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see, once that happens and he meets with teams of the Combine or whatever, where he starts, where we start hearing those rumors popping up here as it sorts out. Let's get more into the quarterbacks here. It's Cam and Shedeur, right? How muddled is it after that this year when you look at what's going on? And, last year we didn't really know. Then all of a sudden, there was 5 guys in the top 15 picks. Is there any way anything like that happens this year just because people love quarterbacks, or how do you see it playing out this year?
Yeah, well, and part of the reason we saw 6 go in the top 12 last year was I think teams were looking towards this quarterback class and saying, I don't know. There's some guys, but I don't know anybody that we really love. And, what Cam Ward did this year, it wasn't quite a Jaden Daniels-like rise, but, it was close. There's a lot to like about him as a next-level guy. You saw progress every year from Incarnate Word to Washington State, then at Miami. He's a very loose passer, and that allows him to create explosives, but it also leads to some things that you just can't get away with as a quarterback. And so if I had a bet on a quarterback in this draft, it would be Cam Ward, just because he's so electric, and I think he's not done learning. He's going to get better and better. But there's a lot of split opinions on these guys around the league. I think Twitter likes Shedeur Sanders a lot more than NFL teams do. But, to your point, quarterback desperation is a real thing. And you look at the Giants picking at 3 and the Raiders at 6, the Jets in the top 10. The Browns at 2, would they force the issue? We know they need a quarterback. And the Titans are an interesting spot at number 1, obviously, because they could use an upgrade at quarterback. There's a new GM. How does he feel about Will Levis? And so what kind of calls will they get? This isn't going to be a situation like 2 years ago where the Panthers gave up everything to go up and get a quarterback and trade away the farm to the Bears. The Titans aren't going to get that type of call. But if they get a call and say, hey, we'll give you, a couple extra day 2 picks if you're the Giants to move up 2 spots, then it becomes really interesting, because I think if you're the Titans, you move back 2 spots to number 3, you still feel really good that, hey, I'm going to get Travis Hunter, or I'm going to get Abdul Carter, the pass rusher from Penn State. And so you're still in a good spot. You add draft capital. And if you're the Giants, you're at that desperation point where you don't want to force the issue. You don't want to force picking a quarterback if you don't believe in him. But at the same time, you have to do something. You just can't go status quo in the next year. And so how does Brian Daboll, obviously he's going to have a big say in the direction they go at quarterback next year. How does he feel about this group of quarterbacks? That's something that we probably won't know for a couple months as they go through this process.
Yeah, we need more Giants Hard Knocks off season this year, because we know last year he liked Jaden Daniels, but they didn't have a shot in hell of going up and getting him. And how much does the Shedeur and really more the Deion aspect of Shedeur loom over this whole thing, where you got to figure if Deion is actually pondering NFL jobs, like he probably doesn't want to not coach his son, I think, in the National Football League.
It certainly certainly an interesting wrinkle. I mean, first and foremost, obviously you have to scout Shedeur, the player, and there's a lot to like about him. He's extremely smart. He's accurate. He's a poised player. I just think that his style, though, he's not the type of athlete. He doesn't have the physical traits to hold up the way he wants to play at the next level. He just drifts all the time in the pocket. He'll go reverse sometimes. Against NFL athletes, he doesn't have the arm and the athleticism to get away with that consistently. So first and foremost, I think you have to scout the player and come to terms with, okay, we think he's a B-level starter. We draft him here. You have to come to terms with that. But then also, the Dion part of this is it's part of the conversation. I don't think it's going to stop you from drafting Shedeur if you really believe in him as an NFL starter. But at the same time, you can't completely ignore it and gloss over it. It's going to be part of the conversation. And I think NFL teams, they might land in different spots based off of where they are in their team building.
In your mock draft last week, you had the Giants in the second round taking Jalen Milroe. Obviously, he's also a polarizing prospect, but not one that's in the top five. Obviously, he's got a cannon. He's an athlete. He's a bit scattershot. How do you view him as an NFL prospect?
Yeah, I don't use the word special lightly when it comes to NFL prospect. But Milroe is truly a special athlete. He's a 4'3" guy, and he's 6'1", 225 pounds. I had one scout tell me that he's never seen an athlete that fast up close and personal before. And so the athlete, and like you mentioned, he's got a rocket arm, and the intelligence is off the charts. The character makeup is outstanding. So that's a great foundation to start with, but he is obviously still very raw with his passing mechanics, the placement, the touch, the precision, things that are obviously vital to playing the position at a high level. But at what point do you feel like, let's roll the dice on this guy and develop him, and a year from now, who knows what we might have. So the Giants aren't exactly a team that has maybe the luxury of drafting a developmental guy like that. But in this draft, there's only so many options, and it's really interesting. After I'm in Dallas next week, then I go to Mobile, and Milroe will be under a microscope down there at the Senior Bowl just to see. You want to see repeatable mechanics. You want to see placement on point, and going up against some of these other quarterbacks, he'll be under a microscope, and so it'll be a big opportunity for him.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see how QBs 3 through 8 or whatever sort out here over the next couple months. We got Dane Brugler from The Athletic. All right, let's do some quick hits on some of the other accused guys. What is Oronde Gadsden to you? People don't even know where to put him. I saw Mel Kiper's list the other day, had him as H-back, some are tight end, some big wide receiver. How do you view a guy like this when you put a draft grade on him?
I think that he is because he's not a zero as a blocker, but obviously you're drafting him because of his ability down the field to run the seam, to win 50-50 balls. He's not a small guy by any means. 6'4.5", 240 pounds. He has foot quickness. The ball skills are terrific. I think there's some comparisons to maybe an Isaiah Likely with the Ravens, who not a first round pick, but obviously the way he can impact that offense, especially when you run a lot of 12 personnel and you get multiple tight ends on the field. That joker tight end role is something that a lot of NFL offenses are going towards, and so it's just a lot of mixing of schemes. And you want to run him in the slot, he can do that. Throw him in the backfield, sure. So I think you focus on what he does well, and that's catch the football, give you mismatches, and teams will figure out how to use that.
Yeah, I mean, he is every inch of 6'5". He is a big dude out there. LaQuinn Allen, do you think he gets drafted? I don't even know what's going on with running backs anymore. 1 billion 1,000-yard guys, none of them are getting paid. What did he make of LaQuinn going into that mix in the draft this year?
I think the saving grace for Allen is how good he is on third downs, catching the football, and then he might be one of the better pass blocking running backs in this draft. And that's something that if you can prove yourself there, you're going to get on the field. And so I think that's, with Allen, that's something that really separates him, and something that if you can gain that trust, you're going to get on the field early. He's ripped up. He's durable. He started 27 straight games to finish his career. I think you go back to his freshman year, he was playing on special teams, and so that'll be big for him. So, yeah, I think that with what he's done on third downs especially and how he can impact the passing game, that's something that teams are going to take notice of. And as long as he is somewhere good to, above average as a tester, just doesn't have to be terrible. As long as he's okay with his testing athleticism, he'll get drafted on day 3 and he'll have a chance once he gets into camp.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I have no clue what he's going to run in the 40. He doesn't appear to be the fastest guy, but you never know when they put on that clock. I'll say Kyle McCord has sung his praises as a blocker, as you said, Dane, all season, so that is extremely telling. All right, let's just hit these Syracuse defensive guys real quick. Any of these guys pop to you as decent draft prospects? Fadil Diggs, Elijah Clark, Marlo Wax, Justin Barron. Do you think we hear any of these names called when we get to the draft this year?
Yeah, I think so, and I'm eager to see a couple of them this week at the Shrine practices. Diggs is interesting because he's a good-sized player, 6'4" and a quarter, 255 pounds, decent arm length, massive hands. He's a guy that can play the run, but he can also get after the quarterback, and they used him in a lot of different ways. They'll stand him up as a linebacker and showed a little bit of his versatility. So I think Diggs definitely has a chance as a day 3 pick. And then I'm an Elijah Clark fan because of how versatile he is. Mm-hmm. You want to play him in the slot. You want to play him as a safety. He can play the post, drop him down in the box. So all these different looks that they gave him, they put a lot on his plate, and I think that he stepped up in a big way. So, yeah, Diggs and Clark are the two that really stand out to me as being draft picks and guys that have a chance to stick on our NFL roster.
Yeah, Wax and Barron seem more like free agent types, so maybe they can earn their keep on special teams or something like that. All right, last thing, Dane, before I let you go, just watching the game last night and then, all season long, Jeremiah Smith is just absurd. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, he's 19 years. I don't even know if he is 19 yet, but he's a freshman. If he were in this draft, I know he's not. How high would he go? Like, is he the number 1 wide receiver off the board if he's available in this draft?
He's the number 1 pick.
Wow.
Plain and simple. He's that good, and especially in today's NFL where everyone's looking for, weapons to separate themselves. He would go number 1 overall, and especially because, again, like you said, he's 19 years old. Like, when you project him out, what's he going to look like at 23, 24? So, he's one of the 0.01% that could go to the NFL right now, and he would be just fine making plays against NFL veterans. He's that special of a player. So, no doubt in my mind, he goes number 1 overall. Unfortunately, for NFL teams, we've got to wait 2 more years for that to happen.
Yeah, it feels like you could drop him in the conference title games this weekend, and he'd make a play. He's that good. Yeah. He's that good. All right, Dane, always great to chat. I'm sure we'll try to catch up again when all this stuff goes down. We get closer to the draft, but really appreciate the time today.
Anytime. Thank you.
All right, our guy, Dane Brugler from The Athletic. He does something called The Beast. It's a very large draft guide. It wouldn't